Hello, it's Mr. Srikanth Palan here, and in this video we're going to look at how to translate graphs. As usual, we'll start with the key points. So I don't fully agree with learning all of these key points. I think there's a bit more than you need here. First of all, if you have y equals f of x, add or subtract a value a, then this is a translation of the original graph f of x parallel to the y-axis. So a vertical translation. Now, I personally wouldn't really worry about whether it's add or subtract, or here add or subtract, and learning two separate rules. I would just say, if you're adding a, then it moves up. If you're subtracting a, that's exactly the same as adding negative a. So all you need to think really is you're moving up every time, and you're moving up by whatever amount this is. And maybe an easier way of explaining that would be to say you when you're translating by the vector 0a, if a is negative, then they would say that this moves down, but I would say it moves up by the value a, and if a was negative, it's moving up by, for example, -4. So you just need to think about this being a translation up by whatever amount this is. And similarly, the second key point, which is about horizontal translations, I would think of it as parallel to the x-axis, and the first one is parallel to the y-axis, but I wouldn't learn these two separate rules or think about it as an add or a subtract here. I would just suggest to you that you learn that if you have y equals f of x add a, then you're going to translate to the right, so not to the left as they've written, and I wouldn't learn this rule at all. And in fact, it might even be better, rather than to think of it as left and right, just to think of it in terms of the vector, but this time the vector would be -a, 0. So that means you're always moving to the right by the amount -a and up 0. And an example of that could be if you had y equals f of x add 5, then that would be a translation by the vector -5, 0, which means you would move -5 to the right and 0 up. -5 to the right, so the opposite sign to what this was. Okay, that's how I would suggest that you learn those key points, and then that way you only need to learn half as many. Okay, we'll look at these with some examples. So the graph shows you the function y equals f of x, and they would like the graph of y equals f of x add 2. So from what I said on the key point on the previous page, this is a translation by the vector 0, 2, and so that's going to move the original graph up by 2 places. So it's going to have the same shape. That wasn't a very good graph. I'll try that a bit better. And this point would be 2 because this would have gone up by 2 places. And that would be good enough for sketching the graph. Okay, example 2. Again, very similar. This is a translation. This time it's a translation by the vector negative of -3, 0. And obviously the easier way to write that would be to just write 3, 0. So remember, it's going to be the negative of whatever you've got here. So the negative of -3. The negative of -3 is +3. So this is a translation to the right by 3. If this point's -2, then it's going to map to this point of 1. So remember, I always do the sketch first and then label my points afterwards. So this point here, which I'll manipulate a bit, is 1. So that's good enough for my sketch. Okay, so that completes my examples on translation. So you should be able to have a go at the practice questions on the PDF now. Good luck.